Hi, welcome to part 1 of my review featuring Fabula Ultima, TTJRPG. This role-playing game attempts to be pretty much Final Fantasy in tabletop role-playing game format. But how well does it accomplish that? For some, I think this game will fall a bit short. For some others, I think you will enjoy it. Because while I think this role-playing game can represent some of the Final Fantasy games in the series, other games are simply not suitable for this RPG. If you were to tell me, how can I run Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy XIII, Final Fantasy XV as a tabletop role-playing game, I would recommend OVA or OVA, or even Valor to represent those games. But if you were to tell me, is there a decent way to play Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy VI perhaps, maybe, just maybe, Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy XI, I would say that Fabula Ultima could accomplish that, but in a real abstract way. Because Fabula Ultima is pretty much a combination of the Ryuutama system with Forged in the Dark or Blades in the Dark. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF. When it comes to the quality, I have a nitpick and a criticism. First, the nitpick. The cover looks great. Let me tell you, the art looks great in general. I think the art is perfect to express the theme of the game. But the cover, if you zoom in a bit too much, it looks slightly pixelated or blurry, just slightly. Like I said, you could consider this a nitpick. But everything else about the art, the layout, the graphic design, the illustrations, I think it's top notch. Beautiful. Beautiful document overall. Now my criticism is that the character sheet is not included in this rulebook. You need to go to the website and download it. I think the quick start doesn't include it either. I remember there's something else. Perhaps it's just the character sheet. But it feels as if you are being pulled into the website, as if they are trying to get traffic into their website. And that bothers me a bit, because I think the document would look better with the included character sheet. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some indie developers, publishers, perhaps just a single person that has just started to publish RPGs and they don't know about this. They made a mistake or something, and then they have to host their character sheet in their website. But in this case, I think this is somewhat of a... I think they made a conscious choice of hosting the character sheet instead of including it with the rulebook. Now, apart from that, the document is well written and explained, it's well organized, you have bookmarks, you have hyperlinks. So, aside from those things that I would consider flaws, the document is great. Now, let's talk about the contents. First, you have an introduction to what this tabletop RPG is all about. It's basically a simulation of JRPGs or Japanese role-playing games. That is those video games such as Bravely Default, Grand Blue Fantasy, Ni no Kuni, but especially Final Fantasy. Now the problem here is that, as I said, there are a lot of Japanese RPGs that are pretty over the top when it comes to power levels, and they rely on solving problems and challenges through the mechanics of the game within the fiction. But in the case of Fabula Ultima, there are metagame elements of player authorship, such as I spend this resource to change this thing about the story, or about that place, or about that non-player character. So the players will be able to modify what the game master presents as a challenge. So as you are playing the game, you are going to be solving situations using those metagame elements, instead of relying on your abilities, your powers, your skills. There is that too, but you have to feel comfortable with the player authorship presented in this RPG. If you like those things, I think you will enjoy this role-playing game, but I still think that it's not the best way to represent the more high-powered Final Fantasy games out there. And because the combat is quite abstract as well, it's not a good representation of games such as Final Fantasy Tactics, in my opinion. I'll let you decide. The introduction also contains the thoughts of the designer and the publisher on what they think about Final Fantasy and many other Japanese role-playing games, how they attempted to represent that in tabletop RPG format. I think that's really neat if you are interested in that design consideration. And the document also has a great introduction to tabletop RPGs in general. If you have never played a role-playing game before, I think this document contains a solid base to get you started. You know, the game master is presenting the game world, the challenges. The players attempt to solve those challenges, they try to interact with the non-player characters in the world, they have adventures in general, and the game master, based on the results of the dice or based on the narrative, is going to present the outcomes for different situations. Now, through the rule set and the theme, this role-playing game attempts to present heroic and fantastic action, a game of heroes and villains, and heroic destiny. It also offers challenging battles within the abstract nature of the system, as I mentioned, and you can create your own world, although they will give you 8 core principles to better shape the sort of Japanese role-playing game fiction that you want to produce. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part, we are going to talk about the 8 pillars and the sort of fantasies that you can create with this RPG. I think that the brief information presented in this part 1 is going to help you decide if this game is for you or not. If you are someone who wants a more tactical simulationist experience, maybe this RPG will disappoint you for a bit. But if you like more abstract things and player authorship through mechanisms that modify the situations presented by the game master, I think this role-playing game is going to be for you. Either way, I hope you will stay for the rest of the review, as we take a look at the different aspects of Fabula Ultima, the TTJRPG. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.